99% of men will never hear this, not because it's hidden, not because it's complicated, but because it requires something most men were never taught to practice: presence. And that is precisely why women love it. Before we go any further, take a breath with me. Not a rushed breath, a slow one. In through your nose, hold it, and out through your mouth. Good. Now, imagine this. A woman walks into a room. She doesn't announce herself. She doesn't need to. Her energy speaks before her words ever do. Most men in that moment are already planning what to say, how to stand out, how to be chosen. And in doing so, they miss the one thing that actually creates attraction. Because attraction doesn't begin with words. It begins with how safe, seen, and felt a woman becomes in your presence. Here's what no one tells men. Women don't fall for effort. They fall for attunement. The ability to notice without interrogating, to listen without trying to fix, to be still without disappearing. Most men think attraction is built by doing more. More talking, more explaining, more probing, more chasing. But what women crave, often without consciously realizing it, is a man who can hold space without collapsing into silence or exploding into performance. This is the part that separates the 1% from everyone else. Let me explain. A woman is constantly processing the world emotionally, not because she's too sensitive, but because her nervous system is wired for connection. When she speaks, she isn't just sharing information, she's revealing state, mood, subtext, vulnerability. And most men respond incorrectly. They interrupt, they advise, they minimize, they joke, they redirect. Not out of cruelty, out of conditioning. But when a man does something different, something subtle, her body notices before her mind does. He slows down. He listens not just to her words, but to the feeling underneath them. He doesn't rush to feel silence. He allows it to exist. And in that silence, something intimate begins to unfold. Because silence, when held with confidence, becomes safety. Think about this. When was the last time you were with someone who didn't need anything from you in that moment? No validation, no reassurance, no performance, just presence. That feeling calm, grounded, unhurried is rare, and rarity is magnetic. Women feel it immediately. Her shoulders soften, her breathing slows, her voice changes. She leans in not physically at first, but emotionally. This is the beginning of desire, not lust. Desire, the kind that lingers. Now listen carefully. The mistake most men make is assuming that intimacy is created by disclosure. So they overshare, they trauma dump, they rush to be vulnerable before the container is strong enough to hold it. But true emotional intimacy is not about exposing yourself, it's about regulating yourself. A regulated man, emotionally, steady, internally anchored, creates a field where a woman feels free to open without fear of being overwhelmed or judged. This is why women often say things like, "I don't know why, but I feel safe with him," or "I can just be myself around him." That sentence is everything, because safety is the gateway to attraction, and attraction, when layered with safety, becomes desire. Here's something else most men never hear. Women are not attracted to attention. They are attracted to intentional attention. There is a difference. Anyone can watch, anyone can look, anyone can compliment, but very few men see. Seeing means noticing her emotional shifts, the change in her tone, the pause before her sentence, the way she lights up when she talks about something meaningful. And then this part is critical. Responding without trying to control the outcome, no agenda, no pressure, just curiosity. Curiosity is seductive because curiosity says, "I'm not here to take, I'm here to understand." And understanding is deeply intimate. Imagine a man who listens to you without waiting for his turn to speak. Imagine a man who doesn't flinch when emotions surface, who doesn't get uncomfortable when vulnerability enters the room. That steadiness does something powerful to a woman's nervous system. It relaxes her. And a relaxed woman is an open woman emotionally first, physically later. This is the psychology behind why some men seem effortlessly attractive without saying much. They're not passive, they're anchored, they don't chase connection, they allow it to emerge. Now let's talk about pacing because pacing is everything. Most men rush intimacy because they fear losing momentum. But women experience desire as something that unfolds, not something that needs to be grabbed. When you slow the interaction, you signal confidence. You signal that you are comfortable with uncertainty. And that comfort is powerful. A woman feels when a man is trying to get somewhere. She feels the pull, the urgency, the subtle pressure. And pressure, no matter how polite, kills attraction. But when a man is fully present in the moment, not leaning forward emotionally, not pulling away, she feels free to move toward him on her own terms. That autonomy is intoxicating. This is why the men women obsess over are rarely the ones who try the hardest. They're the ones who hold themselves the best. Now, let me say something that may challenge you. Emotional intimacy is not about being soft. It's about being stable. Stability allows softness to emerge safely. A woman doesn't want a man who collapses into emotion. She wants a man who can contain emotion, hers and his. This containment feels like strength, quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. And when a woman senses that strength, her body responds before logic ever catches up. This is why presence is so rare because it requires self-mastery. It requires you to be okay with not being chosen in every moment, to not perform, to not grasp, to not disappear just to be. And that paradoxically is what makes women choose you. In the next part, I'll show you how this presence translates into subtle behaviors, eye contact, tone timing, and how men unknowingly sabotage attraction by violating emotional pacing without realizing it. For now, sit with this. Presence is not something you do. It's something you embody, and women always feel it. If this is resonating with you, stay with me. There's much more beneath the surface, and we're only just beginning. Here's where most men lose her. Not because they do something wrong, but because they do something too soon. They lean forward emotionally before she has finished leaning in herself, and she feels it not consciously, not logically, but in her body. A subtle tightening, a slight withdrawal, a hesitation she can't explain. This is the moment where attraction either deepens or quietly dissolves. Because emotional intimacy has a timing to it, and women are exquisitely sensitive to timing. When you interrupt that timing, even with good intentions, you disrupt the nervous system. And desire requires nervous system harmony. Let that sink in. Desire is not just chemistry, it is regulation. A woman feels desire when her body senses, I am safe here and I am free. Free to feel, free to open, free to pull back without consequence. Most men unknowingly remove that freedom. They respond too quickly. They reassure too much. They escalate too fast. An escalation without permission feels like pressure. Now listen carefully. The man women love being around, the one they think about later, understands something subtle. He mirrors her pace without mimicking her energy. That's important. If she is expressive, he doesn't try to outpress her. If she is quiet, he doesn't collapse into silence. He stays centered. His emotions don't swing wildly in response to hers. This creates polarity, not dominance, not control. Polarity. She feels movement around a stable axis, and that stability allows her to soften. This is why emotional attraction often precedes physical attraction. A woman's body opens when her emotions feel held, not managed, not steered, not fixed, held. And holding is an art. It's not gripping, it's not restraining. It's allowing without losing yourself. Think of it like this. When she speaks, you don't rush to close the loop. You don't finish her sentences. You don't jump to conclusions. You don't try to be impressive. You let her arrive at her own words. Silence becomes an invitation. And here's the secret most men never learn. Silence, when you are grounded, feels intimate. It creates a shared internal space. A moment where both of you are aware of each other without distraction. That awareness is charged, not loud, not obvious. Charged. This is why a simple pause after she finishes speaking can feel more intimate than a perfect response, because the pause says, I'm with you, I'm not rushing away from this moment. Women notice that. Now, let's talk about eye contact because eye contact is misunderstood. Most men either avoid it or overdo it. Avoidance feels uncertain. Intensity without warmth feels invasive. But steady, relaxed eye contact, especially when paired with calm breathing, creates emotional safety. You're not staring, you're witnessing. And when a woman feels witnessed without being judged, taught, something deep in her relaxes. Her voice may soften, her posture may change. She may share something she hadn't planned to. That's not an accident. That's attunement. And attunement is rare. This is why women often say they feel drawn to certain men without knowing why. It's not the words, it's the regulation. It's the way he stays present even when the emotional temperature shifts. Especially then, because emotions test containment, anyone can be charming when things are light. Very few men remain steady when vulnerability enters the room. And that's where desire deepens. Let me be clear about something. Emotional intimacy does not mean becoming her therapist. The moment you analyze, interpret, or diagnose her feelings, attraction collapses. Why? Because you've stepped out of presence and into authority. Women don't want to be handled. They want to be met. Meeting her means staying curious instead of conclusive. It means reflecting instead of redirecting. Simple responses carry immense power. I hear you. That makes sense. Tell me more, said slowly without urgency, without expectation. These phrases are not scripts. They're signals. Signals that you're not overwhelmed by her inner world. And when a woman feels she doesn't have to protect you from her emotions, she feels free to feel desire. Now, here's something even more subtle. Men often think desire grows when they reveal themselves emotionally. And yes, vulnerability matters, but timing matters more. If you reveal too much too soon, you invert the polarity. She begins to hold you. And while care is beautiful, desire requires direction. This doesn't mean being closed, it means being selective, sharing from a place of strength rather than need. When you speak about yourself, do it without seeking validation. No fishing, no emotional bargaining, just grounded truth. That calm self-ownership is deeply attractive because it says, I know who I am and I'm not asking you to define me. That independence is magnetic. Now imagine combining all of this presence, pacing, attunement, containment. You're not chasing connection, you're allowing it to unfold. And here's the paradox. The less you try to pull her in, the more she feels free to move toward you. Freedom creates desire, always has, always will. In the next part, we'll go even deeper into how masculine emotional leadership works without dominance, and how women subconsciously test a man's emotional center before trusting attraction. Stay with me. This is where everything begins to change. There is a moment every woman unconsciously waits for, a moment she will never announce, never explain, never even realize she's testing. But her body knows it's the moment when she lets something real slip through. A doubt, a fear, a quiet truth she doesn't usually say out loud. And in that moment, she watches. Not your words, your center. Most men fail here. They tense up. They rush to reassure. They try to remove the discomfort. But discomfort isn't the enemy. Instability is when you rush to fix her feelings. You communicate something subtle but powerful. I can't stay present with this. And if you can't stay present with her emotions, her body doesn't feel safe enough to desire you. This is where emotional leadership comes in. Not leadership over her, leadership over yourself. A man who can remain calm when emotions surface sends a message deeper than words. I can hold this. And when a woman feels held emotionally, her attraction shifts from curiosity to trust. Trust is where desire roots itself. Now here's the part most men misunderstand. Emotional leadership is not about directing the conversation. It's about anchoring the emotional field. You don't dominate the space, you stabilize it. Your breathing stays slow, your tone remains grounded, your presence doesn't waver. The steadiness invites her nervous system to settle. And when it settles, intimacy deepens because desire does not emerge from chaos. It emerges from safety infused with mystery. That balance is rare, safety without boredom, mystery without threat, and only a regulated man can create both at the same time. Let's talk about mystery for a moment. Mystery is not being unavailable, it's not withholding, it's not playing games. Mystery is depth that isn't rushed. It's knowing that not everything needs to be revealed at once. When you allow space between moments, curiosity grows. And curiosity is a precursor to desire. Think about how music works. The pause between notes is what gives the melody its power. Remove the pauses and everything becomes noise. Human connection works the same way. When you allow space, emotional space, she fills it with imagination, and imagination is far more seductive than information. This is why oversharing early on feels draining rather than intimate. Intimacy unfolds. It doesn't dump. Now, here's something subtle but crucial. Women subconsciously test emotional consistency. Not once, repeatedly. She'll share something light then something deeper than pull back. Not to manipulate, but to see if your center stays intact. If you chase when she pulls back, attraction weakens. If you withdraw emotionally to punish her, attraction dies. But if you remain steady, present without pressure, something powerful happens. She returns because she feels safe to move freely. And freedom is the soil where desire grows. This is why confident men don't need to control outcomes. They trust the process. They don't grip connection. They allow it to breathe. Now, let's talk about tone. Tone carries more emotional information than words ever will. A calm, unhurried tone signals confidence. A rushed tone signals need. A soft, grounded tone invites closeness, especially when paired with pauses are not empty. They are charged. A pause says, I'm comfortable here. And comfort, real comfort, is rare. Women spend most of their lives managing other people's emotions. When they meet a man who doesn't require managing, who doesn't collapse, who doesn't escalate, their body relaxes. And relaxation opens the door to desire. This is why women often say attraction just happened. It didn't just happen. It unfolded quietly, naturally, because the conditions were right. Now, listen to this carefully. The deepest form of intimacy is not being needed. It's being chosen. And a woman only chooses freely when she doesn't feel emotionally cornered. Presence without pressure creates choice. Choice creates desire. This is the psychological truth most men never learn. You don't become attractive by convincing. You become attractive by allowing. Allowing her to feel, allowing her to move closer, allowing her to pull away, allowing the connection to breathe. That allowance communicates abundance. And abundance is magnetic. In the next part, we'll explore how this emotional presence translates into everyday interactions, texts, conversations, moments of distance, and how men accidentally sabotage attraction when they panic during silence. Silence is where most men unravel. A message left unread, a pause between replies, a shift in rhythm that feels unfamiliar, and suddenly the mind races. What did I do? Is she losing interest? Should I say something? This is where attraction quietly collapses for most men. Not because silence means disinterest, but because their reaction to silence reveals insecurity. Women don't fear silence. They fear what a man does with it. A man who panics in silence communicates one thing very clearly: I need constant reassurance. And need, when uncontained, dissolves desire. Here's the truth. Emotional intimacy does not require constant contact. It requires emotional continuity. A woman feels continuity when your energy remains consistent whether you're speaking or not. That means when there's space, you don't chase into it. You don't feel it out of anxiety. You let it exist. And that does something powerful. It allows her to miss you. Missing is not absence. Missing is presence remembered. And remembered presence fuels attraction. Most men rob women of the chance to miss them. They overext, they overexplain, they overcorrect. Not because they want to, because they're afraid. But fear leaks always, and women feel it long before men admit it. Now imagine the opposite. Silence appears, and you remain calm, grounded, unmoved, not cold, not withdrawn, just steady. That steadiness speaks louder than 100 messages. It says, I'm okay within myself. And that message is deeply reassuring. Reassurance without words. This is emotional maturity. And emotional maturity is profoundly attractive. Let's talk about distance for a moment. Distance doesn't kill attraction. Inconsistency does. If your presence is warm one moment and needy the next, a woman's nervous system stays on alert. But if your presence is consistent, whether close or distant, she relaxes. And relaxation invites desire. Consistency does not mean availability. It means coherence. You are the same man whether she's leaning in or pulling back. That coherence is rare, and rarity draws attention. Now, here's something subtle. When a woman pulls back emotionally, most men interpret it as rejection. It's often not. Sometimes she's processing, sometimes she's regulating, sometimes she's simply busy. But how you respond reveals your internal world. If you chase, you collapse polarity. If you punish with coldness, you create insecurity. But if you stay open without pursuing something shifts, she feels respected. And respect deepens attraction. Respect says, you don't owe me access. And when access is freely given rather than demanded, it becomes meaningful. This is the difference between attachment and attraction. Attachment clings, attraction invites. So now let's bring this back to emotional intimacy. True intimacy does not grow from constant proximity. It grows from felt connection. A woman can feel connected to you even in silence if your presence has depth. Depth comes from self-awareness, from knowing your emotions without being ruled by them, from allowing feelings to move through you rather than dictate your actions. This is why inner work matters, not for self-improvement aesthetics, but for regulation. A regulated man doesn't outsource his emotional stability. He carries it. And when a woman senses that she relaxes into her own feelings because she doesn't feel responsible for yours, that relief is intoxicating. Now listen to this carefully. The greatest gift you can give a woman emotionally is not intensity. It's ease. Ease says, you don't have to perform here. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to manage me. Ease is the soil where intimacy grows roots, and roots create longevity. This is why women often feel deeply attached to men who make things feel simple, not boring. Simple, clarity, consistency, calm. Those qualities don't scream attraction. They whisper it, and whispers last longer. In the next part, we'll explore how all of this culminates, how emotional safety slowly transforms into desire, longing, and deep feminine attraction without force or manipulation. Stay here. We're almost at the core. There is a moment when emotional safety quietly transforms into something deeper. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't rush forward. It settles. A woman begins to feel you even when you're not there. Your presence lingers not because you demanded attention, but because you left an impression on her nervous system. This is where longing begins. Not craving, not obsession, longing, the kind that grows in stillness. And it happens when she realizes something important. With you, she doesn't feel rushed with you. She doesn't feel managed with you. She doesn't feel like she has to guard herself. That realization is powerful because attraction is not about excitement alone. It's about relief. Relief from pressure, relief from performance, relief from emotional unpredictability. A woman feels desire most deeply when her body can finally rest, and when her body rests, her emotions open. This is why emotional intimacy is not dramatic, it's quiet. It's the way conversations slow instead of escalate. It's the way pauses feel comfortable instead of awkward. It's the way eye contact lingers without demand. It's knowing she can say less and be understood more. Most men never create this space, not because they're incapable, but because they're afraid of losing momentum, afraid that if they don't push, nothing will happen. But here's the truth. What's meant to deepen doesn't need to be forced. It needs to be held. And holding requires strength, inner strength, the kind that doesn't chase reassurance, the kind that doesn't panic in uncertainty, the kind that doesn't confuse urgency with passion. A woman feels that strength. She responds to it instinctively. Her voice softens. Her defenses lower. Desire awakens not explosively but steadily. And steady desire lasts. Now listen carefully. This is the thing 99% of men don't do. They don't master their inner state. They try to control the interaction instead of themselves. But the men women truly love being around, the ones they feel drawn to again and again, are the men who are emotionally self-contained. Men who don't need to rush connection. Men who don't fear silence. Men who don't collapse when emotions appear. Men who are present on that pressure. That presence is felt as confidence, as safety, as depth. And depth is irresistible because depth promises something rare, something real. So if there's one thing to remember, let it be this. You don't attract a woman by doing more. You attract her by being steadier, by slowing down, by listening without fixing, by allowing space, without withdrawing, by holding yourself so she doesn't have to. That is emotional intimacy. And emotional intimacy is where true attraction is born. If this resonated with you, if you felt yourself slowing down just listening to this, then you already understand more than most men ever will. And if you want to go deeper into understanding attraction, connection, and the psychology of relationships, then stay here, subscribe, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Because the men who learn this don't just change how women respond to them, they change how they show up in the world. Calmer, clearer, more grounded, and that kind of presence is unforgettable.